3 weeks after the devastating defeat of Admiral Voss and his battle group, representatives from across the galaxy gathered once again at Nexus Prime Station. The mood was very different from the last conference, where there had been laughter and mockery before. Now there was nervous uncertainty and respectful attention. Admiral Jake Morrison stood at the same viewing window where he had watched aliens laugh at human ships months earlier. Now those same species were sending their most senior diplomats and military leaders to request meetings with Earth representatives. The 12 human vessels docked at the station looked exactly the same as before, but everyone knew that appearances meant nothing when it came to human technology. High Commander Lyra Stellanis of the Etherian Federation approached Morrison with a much different attitude than she had shown during their previous encounter. Her crystalline features reflected the station's lights as she spoke in carefully respectful tones. "Admiral Morrison," she said formally, "the Etherian Federation wishes to apologize for our earlier assessment of human military capabilities. We clearly did not understand the sophistication of Earth's technology." Morrison turned from the window and studied the elegant alien commander. "High Commander Stellanis, there is no need for apologies. We intended for other species to underestimate our capabilities. Your reaction was exactly what we hoped to achieve." Stellanis looked confused. "You deliberately made your ships appear primitive? But why would any species want to seem weak? Because weak enemies are ignored while strong enemies are attacked," Morrison explained. "We needed time to develop our technology and build our fleet without interference. The best way to accomplish that was to convince everyone that we posed no threat." Captain Amy Powell, recently promoted to Admiral, joined the conversation. "The deception was necessary for our survival," she added. "Earth is a young civilization in galactic terms. If we had revealed our true capabilities too early, older species might have decided to eliminate us before we became too powerful." Stellanis nodded slowly. "I am beginning to understand. You used our prejudices against us. We saw simple metal, ships, and assumed your entire civilization was primitive." "Exactly," Morrison replied. "Every species in this galaxy has made the same mistake. You judge others based on appearances and assume that what you see represents the complete truth." Before Stellanis could respond, they were interrupted by the arrival of President Karen Walsh, Earth's civilian leader, who had come to address the Galactic Council. Walsh was a middle-aged woman with gray hair and calm eyes who had overseen the development of human space policy for the past decade. "Admiral Morrison," Walsh said, "the Council is ready for our presentation. Are you prepared to explain humanity's position to the assembled representatives?" Morrison nodded. "Yes, Madam President. I believe they are ready to listen with more attention than they showed during our last visit." The three humans walked together toward the main assembly hall, followed by Stellanis and several other alien representatives who wanted to hear what Earth had to say. The central chamber was packed with delegates from every major civilization in the galaxy. The atmosphere was tense with anticipation and barely concealed nervousness. President Walsh took the podium and activated the holographic display system. Instead of showing the simple human ships that had drawn laughter before, the images now revealed the true configurations of Earth's fleet. Transformed vessels with massive weapon arrays and advanced hull designs rotated slowly above the assembly. "Members of the Galactic Council," Walsh began, 3 weeks ago you witnessed the first public demonstration of human military technology. What you saw represents only a small fraction of Earth's true capabilities." Murmurs of concern rippled through the audience. Many delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats as they began to understand the implications of Walsh's statement. "For the past 15 years," Walsh continued, Humanity has pursued what we call the patience doctrine. This strategy required us to appear weak and primitive while secretly developing technology that would ensure our survival in a galaxy full of older and potentially hostile civilizations. The holographic display changed to show technical diagrams of folded space technology and dimensional compression systems. Alien scientists in the audience leaned forward to study the complex equations and engineering principles that made human ship transformation possible. We did not develop these capabilities to threaten other species, Walsh explained. We developed them because we recognized that Earth needed protection from forces like the Korthak Empire. Recent events have proven that our caution was justified. Admiral Morrison stepped forward to address the military aspects of the presentation. The Korthak attack destroyed 7 civilian stations and killed over 50,000 innocent beings. When they entered human space with 30 warships, they believed they were attacking a weak and defenseless civilization. They discovered that appearances can be very deceiving. The assembly remained silent as Morrison continued. Earth's fleet currently consists of 47 vessels, all equipped with transformation technology. What you saw 3 weeks ago was 4 ships operating at approximately 60% of their maximum capability. We chose to demonstrate restraint rather than completely destroying Admiral Voss's forces. A delegate from the Vegan Trade Union raised his hand with a question. Admiral Morrison, if you possessed such advanced technology, why did you not prevent the Korthak attacks on civilian targets? Morrison had expected this question. Because prevention would have required revealing our capabilities before we were ready. The Galactic Council had excluded humanity from all military planning and defense exercises. We were not included in intelligence sharing or early warning systems. When the attacks began, we had to choose between maintaining our strategic deception and saving lives we had no legal obligation to protect. President Walsh resumed her presentation. The patience doctrine succeeded because every species in this galaxy made the same fundamental error. You assumed that technological development follows a predictable pattern. You believed that younger civilizations must necessarily be less advanced than older ones. You judged our capabilities based on the appearance of our ships rather than investigating what those ships might actually contain. The holographic display showed Admiral Voss's battle group before and after their encounter with human forces. The contrast between 30 confident bioships advancing to attack and 8 damaged vessels limping away from the battlefield was stark and sobering. Admiral Voss learned the cost of underestimating an opponent, Morrison observed. His forces were defeated not because human weapons were more powerful, though they were, but because he had no accurate intelligence about what he was actually fighting. He attacked 4 destroyers and found himself facing 4 battlecruisers. High Commander. Stellanis stood to address the assembly. The Etherian Federation wishes to formally request a defense alliance with Earth. Recent events have demonstrated that human military technology is the most advanced in the galaxy. We would be honored to have humanity as a partner rather than a potential enemy. Similar requests came from delegates representing dozens of other species. The Centauri Republic offered trade agreements. The Andorian Confederation requested technology-sharing partnerships. Even former allies of the Korthak Empire were quick to distance themselves from Admiral Voss and seek accommodation with the newly revealed human power. President Walsh listened to these requests politely before responding. Earth appreciates these offers of friendship and cooperation. However, we must first address the fundamental problem that led to the current situation. This galaxy operates on assumptions and prejudices that nearly resulted in the unnecessary destruction of human civilization. Morrison stepped forward again. 3 months ago, representatives of your civilizations laughed at our ships. You excluded us from military exercises and defense planning. You dismissed our capabilities without investigation and assumed we posed no threat to anyone. These attitudes created the conditions that allowed the Korthak Empire to believe it could attack human space without consequences. The assembly grew uncomfortably quiet as the implications sank in. Their own arrogance and prejudice had nearly led to a major galactic war. Going forward, Walsh announced, Earth is prepared to take a more active role in galactic affairs. We will share selected technologies with allied species and contribute to collective defense efforts. However, we will no longer accept being dismissed or excluded based on false assumptions about human capabilities. Admiral Powell activated a new holographic display that showed star charts of human space and surrounding regions. Earth is establishing expanded security zones around our territory and our allies. Any hostile force entering these zones will face the full capabilities of the human fleet, not the limited demonstration that Admiral Voss experienced. The presentation concluded with President Walsh making a final observation. The galaxy laughed at our ships because they looked primitive and simple. You assumed that appearance reflected reality without bothering to investigate further. This mistake nearly cost thousands of lives and could have destabilized the entire region. Admiral Zektar Voss stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the tactical display show 4 human ships waiting ahead. The primitive vessels appeared to be holding position near a small asteroid field, probably hoping the rocks would provide some protection from his superior firepower. He almost felt sorry for the humans, but they had brought this destruction upon themselves. "Are those the same ships we saw at Nexus Prime?" asked his second-in-command, a younger Korthak named Draktor Nash. "Yes," Voss replied with satisfaction. "The same metal boxes that their Admiral Morrison tried to pass off as warships. Look at them, Nash. They are not even trying to run anymore. They know they cannot escape." Nash studied the sensor readings. The lead ship appears to be the USS Defiance. Intelligence reports indicate it is their flagship. Should we demand their surrender before attacking? Voss laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the bridge. "Let them surrender if they wish. But I doubt these humans have the sense to give up without a fight. They are probably hoping their primitive missiles might damage one of our bioships." The Korthak battle group consisted of 30 vessels ranging from fast attack cruisers to massive dreadnoughts. Each bioship was grown rather than built, with living hull material that could repair itself during combat. Their weapons were plasma-based systems that could melt through most known armor types. By every calculation, 4 human ships should not last more than a few minutes against such overwhelming force. "Sir," reported the communications officer, "we are receiving a transmission from the human flagship." "Put it on the main screen," Voss ordered. He was curious to see how Admiral Morrison would try to talk his way out of this situation. Morrison's face appeared on the display, and he looked remarkably calm for someone who was about to be destroyed. "Admiral Voss," Morrison said politely, "I see you have decided to bring your entire battle group to visit us. We are honored by so much attention." Voss smiled, showing his sharp reptilian teeth. "Admiral Morrison, you and your primitive ships are blocking the advance of the Korthak Empire. Surrender immediately and your crews will be treated as prisoners of war. Resist, and you will all be destroyed." Morrison nodded thoughtfully. "That is a generous offer, Admiral Voss. However, I am afraid we must decline. You see, we have orders to defend this system, and humans always follow orders." "Then you have chosen death," Voss declared. "Your metal boxes are no match for Korthak bioships. This battle will be over in minutes." Morrison smiled slightly. "You may be surprised, Admiral. Human ships are not always what they appear to be." Voss cut the transmission and turned to his tactical officer. "Begin the attack. Target their flagship first. I want Morrison to watch his ship die before we destroy the others." The Korthak bioships moved forward in attack formation. Their plasma cannons began charging as they closed the distance to optimal firing range. 30 against 4 should be the shortest battle in galactic history. "Sir," Nash reported, "we are now within weapons range. All ships report ready to fire." "Fire at will," Voss commanded. "Destroy them." 30 Korthak ships opened fire simultaneously. Brilliant streams of plasma energy streaked across space toward the 4 human vessels. Voss watched with satisfaction, expecting to see the primitive metal ships torn apart by overwhelming firepower. Instead, something impossible happened. The 4 human ships suddenly seemed to shimmer and change. Their hull configurations shifted dramatically as hidden sections unfolded from what appeared to be empty space. The small destroyer USS Defiance tripled in size as massive weapon ports opened along its expanded hull. The other human ships underwent similar transformations, revealing themselves to be much larger and more heavily armed than anyone had believed possible. "What is this?" Voss demanded. "How can ships change their size like that?" Nash stared at his sensor displays in confusion. "Sir, the readings are all wrong. The human ships are showing mass and energy signatures that are completely different from what we detected before. The USS Defiance is reading as a heavy battle cruiser, not a primitive destroyer." Before Voss could respond, the transformed human ships returned fire. Massive plasma cannons that had been hidden moments before unleashed devastating energy beams that dwarfed anything the Korthak had ever seen. The USS Defiance fired a single shot that completely destroyed a Korthak cruiser, vaporizing the bioship in a brilliant flash of light. "Impossible!" Voss shouted. "Their weapons cannot be that powerful!" But the evidence was right in front of him. The USS Vengeance fired a spread of missiles that tracked and destroyed 3 more Korthak ships before they could take evasive action. The USS Patriot revealed laser arrays that cut through bioship hulls like they were made of paper. The USS Liberty demonstrated plasma cannons that outranged and overpowered anything in the Korthak arsenal. "Sir," Nash reported with panic in his voice, "we have lost 6 ships in the first exchange. The human weapons are far more advanced than our intelligence indicated. Their armor is deflecting our plasma beams like they are nothing more than flashlights." Voss could not believe what he was seeing. The primitive human ships that he had mocked and dismissed were systematically destroying his battle group with weapons technology that seemed decades ahead of anything the Korthak possessed. How could this be possible? "All ships, concentrate. Fire on the flagship," Voss ordered desperately. "If we can destroy Morrison, the others might surrender." 24 remaining Korthak ships focused their attack on the USS Defiance. Plasma beams converged on the human vessel from every direction, creating a brilliant light show that should have reduced any ship to atoms. The USS Defiance emerged from the attack completely undamaged. Its advanced shielding systems had absorbed the energy and converted it to power for its own weapons. Captain Torres responded by firing the ship's main cannon, a weapon that had been completely hidden during the transformation. The energy beam struck Voss's flagship and penetrated deep into the bioship's living hull. "Damage report!" Voss demanded, as his ship shuddered from the impact. "Forward sections are severely damaged," Nash replied. "The living hull is trying to repair itself, but the human weapon left some kind of energy residue that is preventing normal regeneration. Sir, I recommend immediate withdrawal." Voss's pride would not let him retreat from primitive humans, no matter what impossible technology they were using. Continue the attack. We still outnumber them 6-1, but the numbers were changing rapidly. Commander Steve Mitchell aboard the USS Vengeance demonstrated tactical skills that surprised even his human allies. His ship danced through the Korthak formation, firing precisely targeted shots that disabled enemy vessels without completely destroying them. Within minutes, he had crippled 5 more bioships and forced them to withdraw from combat. The USS Patriot and USS Liberty worked together to destroy the Korthak left flank. Their coordinated fire patterns created overlapping fields of destruction that the bioships could not penetrate. The organic vessels that had seemed so advanced and powerful were being systematically outfought by human ships that had appeared primitive just minutes before. "Sir," Nash reported with growing alarm, "we have lost 18 ships. The survivors are requesting permission to withdraw. Our weapons are having minimal effect, while their weapons are destroying us with single shots." Voss stared at his tactical display in disbelief. His mighty battle group was being defeated by 4 human ships that had somehow hidden their true capabilities. The metal boxes that he had mocked were revealing themselves to be the most advanced warships he had ever encountered. Admiral Morrison's voice came over the communication system again. "Admiral Voss, this is your final warning. Withdraw your forces immediately or face complete destruction. You have seen what human ships can really do. Do not force us to demonstrate our full capabilities." Voss wanted to continue fighting, but the evidence was undeniable. His forces were being slaughtered by superior human technology. Pride had led him into a trap that was costing him his entire fleet. "Sir," Nash said quietly, "if we do not withdraw, now none of our ships will survive. The humans have been playing a game that we never understood." Voss realized that his earlier assessment had been completely wrong. The humans had not been weak and primitive. They had been patient and deceptive, allowing other species to underestimate them while secretly developing technology that surpassed anything in the galaxy. "All ships," Voss finally ordered, "begin withdrawal to the edge of the system. Do not engage the human vessels unless they pursue." But Admiral Morrison was not finished demonstrating human capabilities. As the surviving Korthak ships tried to retreat, the 4 human vessels pursued them relentlessly. Their advanced engines allowed them to overtake the bioships easily, and their weapons continued to pick off stragglers with devastating accuracy. "Sir," Nash reported, "the humans are not allowing us to withdraw. They are destroying any ship that falls behind the main group." Morrison's voice came over the communication system one final time. "The galaxy laughed at our ships, Admiral Voss. You mocked our technology and dismissed our capabilities. Now you understand that humans are not the primitive species you believed us to be. Remember this lesson when you return to your empire." 3 months after the humiliating conference at Nexus Prime, General Marcus Webb received the first reports of Korthak attacks. He sat in the command center deep below Earth's surface and watched holographic displays show the destruction of New Geneva Station. The trading post had been home to 15,000 civilians from 12 different species. Now it was nothing but floating debris and emergency pods. "How many stations have they hit?" Webb asked his aide, a young officer named Lieutenant Cole Davis. 7 confirmed, sir," Davis replied, studying his datapad. "All civilian targets, all in neutral space near our borders. The Korthak are claiming territorial expansion rights under some ancient law they just discovered." Webb shook his head. Zektar Voss was making his move exactly as Earth intelligence had predicted. The arrogant reptilian commander thought the galaxy was weak and divided. He believed his bioships could crush any opposition before the Galactic Council could organize a response. "What about the Council?" Webb asked. "Are they calling for an emergency session?" "Yes, sir, but you know how that goes. The Etherians want to form a committee to study the situation. The Centauri delegation is demanding proof that the attacks were unprovoked. The Vegan trade unions are worried about economic impacts. It will take them weeks to agree on anything useful." Webb stood and walked to the main display screen. It showed the positions of all known fleets in this sector of the galaxy. Red markers indicated Korthak forces, which were advancing steadily toward more populated systems. Blue markers showed human ships, which appeared to be retreating from every confrontation. "Where is Admiral Morrison now?" Webb asked. "The Defiance, and 3 other ships are falling back toward the Tau Ceti system," Davis replied. "The remaining human vessels are scattered across 6 different sectors, all withdrawing from Korthak advances." Webb nodded. It looked exactly like a panicked retreat by an outmatched human fleet. The Korthak would see the withdrawal and become even more confident. Other alien species would observe human cowardice and feel justified in their earlier mockery. Everything was proceeding according to plan. Dr. Lisa Harper entered the command center carrying a secured data case. She was the chief engineer for Project Metamorphosis and one of only 20 people on Earth who knew the complete truth about human military capabilities. "General Webb," she said, "I need to report that all 12 ships have completed their final modifications. We are ready for the next phase." Webb looked around the command center to make sure no one else was listening. "How long do you need once we give the activation order?" 15 minutes for full transformation," Harper replied quietly. "Each ship will need to go to minimal power during the transition, so they will be vulnerable during that window. But once the process is complete, the Korthak are in for a very unpleasant surprise." Davis looked confused. He was young and had not been briefed on the classified aspects of human military development. "Sir, what modifications? I thought our ships were already at maximum capability." Webb and Harper exchanged glances. The young lieutenant had clearance to know some details, but not everything. "Lieutenant," Webb said, "what you have seen of our ships represents about 30% of their true capabilities. The other 70% has been hidden using technology that no other species in the galaxy possesses." "Hidden how?" Davis asked. Harper opened her data case and pulled out a small holographic projector. She activated it, and a 3-dimensional image of the USS Defiance appeared in the air. "What you are seeing is the ship in its compressed configuration," she explained. "The hull, weapons, engines, and internal systems are all folded using spatial manipulation technology. When we activate the metamorphosis protocol, the ship unfolds into its true size and capabilities." Davis stared at the hologram as Harper manipulated the controls. The image of the Defiance began to change. Hull sections slid apart and expanded. Weapon ports opened to reveal massive cannon arrays. The ship's length tripled as hidden compartments unfolded from what had appeared to be empty space. "This is impossible," Davis whispered. "How can a ship hide so much mass and volume?" "Folded space technology," Harper explained. "We developed it by studying quantum mechanics and dimensional physics. Other species focused on making their ships bigger and more powerful. We focused on making our ships appear smaller and weaker, while actually becoming more deadly." Webb watched Davis process this information. The lieutenant was a good officer, but like most humans, he had believed that their military was genuinely inferior to alien technology. "How long have we been able to do this?" Davis asked. "The first successful test was 12 years ago. Webb replied. "We have been building ships with compression technology for 8 years. Every vessel in our fleet can transform, but we have never used the capability in front of witnesses." "Why?" Davis asked. "Why let other species think we are weak?" Harper, close the holographic projector. "Because weak enemies are ignored, Lieutenant. Strong enemies are attacked before they become too dangerous. We needed time to build our fleet and perfect our technology. We needed the galaxy to dismiss us as harmless primitives while we prepared for the day when someone would force us to reveal our true strength." That day was approaching rapidly. Over the next week, Korthak forces destroyed 4 more civilian stations and began advancing toward inhabited star systems. Their bioships moved in formation through space, confident that no force in the galaxy could stop them. Admiral Voss broadcasted demands that all species in his path surrender immediately or face the consequences. The Galactic Council finally managed to call an emergency session, but their response was predictably weak. They condemned the Korthak attacks and demanded an immediate ceasefire. They threatened economic sanctions and diplomatic isolation. They formed a committee to study possible military responses, but they took no action that would actually stop the advancing alien fleet. Meanwhile, human ships continued their apparent retreat. Morrison and the Defiance fled from 3 separate Korthak squadrons, always staying just out of weapons range. The USS Vengeance abandoned a supply depot rather than fight 2 Korthak cruisers. The USS Patriot withdrew from the Kepler system. When Korthak scouts appeared at the edge of the star system, alien news networks picked up these stories and broadcast them across the galaxy. Human cowardice became a popular topic of discussion. Many species expressed sympathy for Earth's predicament, but no one offered military assistance. After all, what could 12 primitive human ships do against the mighty Korthak Empire? "The humans are learning their place in the galactic order," Voss announced during one of his propaganda broadcasts. "Their primitive technology cannot stand against the power of the Korthak fleet. Soon they will beg for mercy and accept our terms. For peace." Webb watched this broadcast from his command center and smiled grimly. Voss was walking directly into the trap that Earth had spent years preparing. The reptilian commander's arrogance was making him careless and overconfident. He was advancing his forces without proper reconnaissance or intelligence gathering because he believed human ships posed no threat. "General," Davis said, "I am receiving reports that Korthak forces have entered the Proxima system. That is only 2 jumps away from Earth itself." Webb nodded. Proxima was the trigger point that had been established years ago. Once Korthak forces crossed that line, Earth would consider itself under direct threat, and authorization for military response would be automatic. "Send the activation codes to all fleet commanders," Webb ordered. "Execute Metamorphosis Protocol." "On my mark." Harper moved to a secured communication console and began entering authorization codes. "All ships are standing by," she reported. "Admiral Morrison is requesting permission to begin transformation sequence." "What about the Korthak?" Webb asked. "Are they still advancing?" Davis checked his displays. "Yes, sir. Voss is leading a battle. Group of 30 ships directly toward Earth. He is broadcasting surrender demands and threatening to destroy any human vessels that do not immediately submit to Korthak authority." Webb looked at the tactical display one more time. 30 Korthak bioships against 12 seemingly primitive human vessels. By every calculation that other species would make, the battle was already over. The humans would be forced to surrender, or be destroyed within hours. "Dr. Harper," Webb said formally, "you are authorized to transmit activation codes to all fleet units. Execute Metamorphosis Protocol immediately." Harper's fingers moved across the communication controls. Encrypted signals flashed out through subspace to reach human ships scattered across 3 star systems. On the bridge of the USS Defiance, Admiral Morrison received his authorization and turned to Captain Torres. "Captain," Morrison said calmly, "you may begin transformation sequence. It is time to show the galaxy what human ships can really do." Torres nodded and activated ship-wide communications. "All hands, this is the captain. Secure for metamorphosis protocol activation. Repeat, secure for transformation sequence." Throughout the ship, crew members strapped themselves into their stations and activated emergency restraint systems. Deep in the engineering sections, massive machinery that had been hidden behind. Captain Zektar stood on the bridge of the Andorian warship Seeker's Light, his scaled hands gripping the command rail as he studied the sensor readings. His yellow eyes narrowed as he examined the data streaming across the holographic display. Something was out there in the dark space between stars, something that should not exist in this empty region of the galaxy. The object was drifting slowly, its energy signature weak, but definitely artificial. It was clearly a spacecraft, but unlike anything in the Andorian Empire's vast database of known vessels. "Commander Veltok, increase scanner resolution," Zektar ordered, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had commanded ships for over 20 years. "I want to know everything about that vessel." The bridge crew worked quickly at their stations, their reptilian features focused and alert. The Andorians had built their empire through careful expansion and overwhelming military force. Every unknown contact was treated as a potential threat until proven otherwise. This was how they had survived and thrived while other species had fallen to conquest or destruction. "Sir, the vessel appears to be damaged," reported Lieutenant Kexara from the sensor station. "I am detecting hull breaches and minimal life support. The design is completely unknown to our archives." Zektar's tail twitched with interest. Unknown technology often meant valuable technology. The Empire had grown strong by taking the best innovations from conquered worlds and making them their own. "Any signs of weapons systems?" "Negative, Captain. The ship appears to be unarmed, though I cannot be certain given the unfamiliar configuration." This puzzled Zektar. What kind of species built ships without weapons in a galaxy filled with hostile forces? Either these beings were incredibly naive, or they possessed defenses so advanced that conventional weapons were unnecessary. Both possibilities concerned him. "Set course for intercept. Signal battle stations and prepare a boarding party," he commanded. "We will investigate this vessel personally." The Seeker's Light changed course smoothly, its powerful engines pushing the warship toward the mysterious craft. As they drew closer, the alien vessel became visible on the main screen. It was smaller than most Andorian ships, with clean lines and an efficient design that spoke of advanced engineering. Despite the obvious damage, there was something elegant about its construction that impressed even Zektar's military sensibilities. The damaged ship hung motionless in space, its hull scarred by what appeared to be internal explosions. Several sections showed the telltale signs of emergency seal deployment, indicating that the crew had managed some damage control before their systems failed. Whoever these beings were, they knew how to handle a crisis. "Sir, I am detecting 3 life signs aboard the vessel," Kexara reported. "All appear to be weak, but stable." "Only 3 survivors? How large was the original crew?" "Unknown, Captain. The ship's configuration suggests it was designed for a crew of approximately 10 to 12 beings." Zektar considered this information. If most of the crew had died in whatever disaster had crippled their ship, the survivors might be desperate, enough to cooperate. Desperate beings often provided the most useful information about their technology and homeworld. Commander Veltok, take a full boarding team and secure that vessel. I want those survivors brought aboard for questioning. Be careful with their technology. Anything unknown could be dangerous. Understood, Captain. The boarding operation proceeded smoothly. Andorian soldiers in full combat armor cut through the damaged airlock and entered the alien ship. Zektar watched through their helmet cameras as they moved through corridors filled with strange symbols and unfamiliar equipment. The artificial gravity was still functioning, though at a lower level than Andorian standard. They found the survivors in what appeared to be a medical bay. 3 beings unlike anything the Andorians had encountered before. They walked upright, on 2 legs like Andorians, but their skin was smooth rather than scaled, and they came in various shades of brown and pale colors. Hair grew from the tops of their heads in different colors and styles. Most surprising of all, they showed no fear when the armed soldiers entered their sanctuary. I am Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison of the Earth Exploration Service, said one of the beings, a male with brown hair and calm blue eyes. These are Dr. Lisa Parker and Engineer Tony Rodriguez. We need medical assistance for our injured crew members. Commander Veltok was taken aback by the directness of the response. Most species either begged for mercy or made threats when confronted by Andorian soldiers. These humans, as they called themselves, seemed more concerned about their wounded than their own capture. You are now prisoners of the Andorian Empire, Veltok announced through his suit's translator. You will come with us for questioning. We understand, Jake replied, but Dr. Parker is badly injured, and Tony has radiation exposure from our reactor breach. Can your medical team help them? This request puzzled Veltok even more. Prisoners typically tried to hide weaknesses, not advertise them to their captors. Our medical facilities will examine you all. Move. As the boarding party prepared to transfer the humans, something unexpected happened. 2 Andorian soldiers had been injured when a piece of damaged equipment had exploded during their entry. The humans immediately moved to help them, despite being prisoners and despite the language barrier. Dr. Lisa Parker, though clearly in pain from her own injuries, knelt beside the wounded soldiers and began examining their wounds. She gestured to her medical kit and then to the injured Andorians asking permission to help. Her actions were so unexpected that the soldiers did not know how to respond. She wants to treat our wounded, one of the soldiers reported over the comm system. That makes no sense, Veltok replied. Why would prisoners want to help their captors? Jake. Morrison seemed to understand the confusion. Dr. Parker took an oath to help all injured beings, regardless of species or circumstances. If you allow her to work, she can stabilize your soldiers until they reach your medical bay. The concept was so foreign to Andorian thinking that Veltok had to contact Captain Zektar for guidance. The idea that enemy prisoners would voluntarily aid their captors defied everything the Andorians understood about warfare and survival. Allow it, Zektar decided after a long pause. But watch them carefully. Dr. Parker worked quickly and efficiently, using her medical supplies to stop bleeding and stabilize the injured soldiers. Her movements were precise and professional, showing extensive training and experience. Even more surprising, she used some of her own medical supplies she might need for her own recovery, to help the Andorian soldiers. Meanwhile, Tony Rodriguez approached the damaged equipment that had caused the explosion. Despite his obvious fatigue and radiation sickness, he pointed out several hazards that could endanger the boarding party. He even suggested modifications to their cutting tools that would make their work safer and faster. "These beings are not behaving like any prisoners we have ever taken," Commander Veltok reported privately to Captain Zektar. "They seem genuinely concerned for our welfare." "Maintain security protocols," Zektar ordered, though he found himself equally puzzled by the humans' behavior. "Bring them aboard immediately." The transfer was completed without incident. As the humans were escorted to holding cells aboard the Seeker's Light, they continued to surprise their captors. Instead of sullen silence or angry protests, they asked questions about Andorian culture and expressed wonder at the advanced technology of the warship. Jake Morrison even complimented the efficiency of the ship's design, pointing out several innovations that impressed him. In the medical bay, Dr. Parker continued to assist with treating the injured Andorian soldiers, working alongside the ship's medical staff as if she were a colleague rather than a prisoner. The Andorian doctors found her knowledge extensive and her techniques remarkably advanced in several areas. Captain Zektar reviewed the reports from his crew with growing confusion. These humans displayed no hostility, made no demands, and seemed genuinely interested in helping their captors. Their technology appeared advanced, but they freely shared information about it. Their medical knowledge was sophisticated, and they used it to benefit Andorian soldiers rather than leverage it for better treatment. "Sir, what are your orders regarding the prisoners?" Commander Veltok asked. Zektar considered carefully. Standard procedure was to extract information through interrogation and then either ransom the prisoners back to their people or sell them as slaves. But these humans presented a puzzle that standard procedures might not solve. "Signal Admiral Thexan at Fleet Command. Inform him that we have encountered a new species with unusual characteristics. Request permission to transfer them to the Dominion's Edge for extended interrogation." "Yes, Captain." As the Seeker's Light changed course toward the fleet's position, Zektar found himself thinking about the humans' strange behavior. In his experience, all intelligent species were driven by the same basic motivations: survival, power, and advantage over others. Yet these humans seemed to operate by different rules entirely. Perhaps they were simply more clever than most species, using apparent weakness and kindness as psychological weapons. Or perhaps they were genuinely different from anything the Andorian Empire had encountered. Admiral Thexan stood before the massive viewing port of his flagship, the Dominion's Edge, watching as the smaller vessel Seeker's Light approached through the darkness of space. His weathered scales bore the scars of countless battles, and his one remaining eye held the cold intelligence of a warrior who had never known defeat. For 40 years, he had served the Andorian Empire, crushing rebellions and expanding their territory across 3 galactic sectors. He had interrogated thousands of prisoners from dozens of species, and he understood the psychology of conquest better than any officer in the fleet. Yet the report from Captain Zektar troubled him deeply. Prisoners who helped their captors, shared their technology freely, and showed concern for enemy wounded were either brilliant psychological manipulators or something entirely outside his experience. Both possibilities required careful investigation. "Bring me the humans," he ordered his aide, a young lieutenant named Morjack. "Place them in Interrogation Chamber 7, but maintain full security protocols." The 3 humans were escorted into the chamber by 6 armed guards. Admiral Thexan observed them through the one-way viewing panel before entering. They sat calmly at the metal table, showing none of the nervous tension he expected from prisoners facing interrogation. The male called Jake Morrison actually appeared to be admiring the craftsmanship of the chamber's construction. When Thexan entered the room, his imposing presence typically caused prisoners to cower or attempt to appear more threatening themselves. These humans simply looked up with what appeared to be genuine curiosity. Dr. Lisa Parker, despite the bandages covering her injuries, gave him what he recognized as a respectful nod. Tony Rodriguez offered what might have been a smile, though Thexan was unfamiliar with human facial expressions. "I am Admiral Thexan of the Andorian Imperial Fleet," he began, settling his bulk into the reinforced chair across from them. "You are prisoners of the Empire, and you will answer my questions completely and truthfully." "We understand, Admiral," Jake Morrison replied. "We appreciate the medical care your staff provided to Dr. Parker and Tony. Your doctors are quite skilled." This response caught Thexan off guard. Prisoners did not typically begin interrogations by thanking their captors. "Your gratitude is noted but irrelevant. I want to know about your species, your technology, and your intentions in this sector." "Of course," Jake said. "We are humans from a world called Earth, located approximately 200 light-years from here in what you probably consider the galactic frontier. We were on an exploration mission when our reactor suffered a cascade failure. We have been monitoring galactic communications for several decades and know about your empire." The Admiral's eye narrowed. "Monitoring our communications? For what purpose?" "To learn about our neighbors," Dr. Parker interjected. "We wanted to understand the political situation before making formal contact. We hope to avoid misunderstandings that might lead to conflict." Thexan found this explanation suspect. Most species monitor their enemies to find weaknesses for attack. "What makes you different?" Tony Rodriguez leaned forward slightly. "Admiral, with respect, we are not looking for enemies or weaknesses. We are looking for friends and strengths. The galaxy is a dangerous place, and cooperation serves everyone better than conflict." "Cooperation," Thexan repeated the word as if it tasted strange. "You speak of cooperation while trespassing in Imperial space." "We were not trying to trespass," Jake explained patiently. "Our navigation systems failed during the reactor incident. We were actually trying to send a distress signal to warn any ships in the area about dangerous spatial anomalies we detected in this region." "Warn us? About what?" Jake looked at his companions, who nodded encouragingly. "Admiral, our long-range sensors detected massive gravitational distortions approximately 30 light-years from here. The distortions appear to be expanding and will likely destabilize several star systems within the next 50 years. We were coming to warn your people and offer our assistance in dealing with the threat." Admiral Thexan sat back in his chair. This was not how interrogations typically proceeded. Instead of extracting information from unwilling prisoners, he found himself receiving unsolicited intelligence about potential threats to Imperial territory. "Why would you warn us about anything?" "We are strangers to you. Because innocent beings will die if those star systems collapse," Dr. Parker said simply. "We cannot stand by and let that happen when we have the knowledge to prevent it." "Even if those beings are not your own species?" "Especially because they are not our own species," Tony replied. "Any civilization advanced enough to achieve space, travel has value and deserves a chance to survive." The Admiral struggled to process this concept. In his experience, species only helped others when they expected something in return: resources, territory, or strategic advantage. "What do you want in exchange for this information?" "Nothing," Jake said. "Well, perhaps the opportunity to work together on solutions. This kind of stellar engineering project would require resources and expertise beyond what any single species possesses." You would share your technology freely? Of course. Dr. Parker has already shared several medical techniques with your staff that could save thousands of lives. Tony has identified several improvements to your ship's efficiency that could increase performance by 20%. We have detailed star charts that could help your navigators avoid dangerous regions. Thexan activated his personal recorder. This conversation needed to be documented exactly as it occurred, because his superiors would never believe it otherwise. Describe these technologies you claim to possess. For the next 2 hours, the humans provided detailed explanations of their scientific capabilities. They described fusion reactors that could power entire cities, medical techniques that could cure diseases that plagued multiple species, and warning systems that could predict stellar phenomena years in advance. Most remarkably, they provided technical specifications freely, without being forced or tortured. Dr. Parker even requested permission to examine some of the ship's medical files, claiming she could help treat several conditions that Andorian doctors considered incurable. When Thexan granted permission as a test, she quickly identified treatments for 3 different ailments that had been puzzling the medical staff. Your knowledge is extensive, the Admiral admitted, but knowledge is power, and power is not shared freely. What is your true purpose? Tony looked confused. Admiral, I do not understand the question. Our purpose is to help. What other purpose would there be? Conquest, expansion, resource acquisition, the accumulation of power over other species. Thexan listed the motivations that drove every civilization he had encountered. Those goals seem self-defeating, Jake observed. Conquest requires enormous resources and creates enemies. Expansion for its own sake leads to overextension and vulnerability. Resource acquisition through force is less efficient than resource acquisition through trade. The accumulation of power over others breeds resentment and rebellion. Then how does your species grow and prosper? Through cooperation, trade, scientific advancement, and mutual aid, Dr. Parker explained. We have learned that helping others ultimately helps ourselves. A galaxy full of prosperous, educated civilizations is safer and more interesting than a galaxy full of conquered territories. Admiral Thexan found himself at a loss. Every method of interrogation he knew was designed to break down resistance and force admissions of hostile intent. But these humans showed no resistance and admitted to no hostile intent. Instead, they volunteered information that could benefit the Empire while asking for nothing in return. Computer, analyze speech patterns and biometric data of the prisoners, he ordered. Analysis complete, Admiral. No indications of deception detected in any subject. Stress levels are consistent with concern for interrogator rather than fear of interrogator. This result troubled Thexan more than any other possibility. If the humans were telling the truth, then everything he understood about interspecies relations was wrong. If they were lying, they were using deception techniques, so advanced that Imperial technology could not detect them. Lieutenant Moore, Jack, bring me the files on every species the Empire has encountered, he ordered through his communicator. I want to review their first contact protocols and interrogation results. As his aide left to retrieve the files, Thexan turned back to the humans. Your behavior is unprecedented in Imperial records. Every species we have encountered has shown aggression, fear, or attempts at deception when captured. You show none of these responses. Why would we show aggression toward people who are helping us? Jake asked. Your medical team saved Dr. Parker's life and treated Tony's radiation poisoning. Your engineers are working to repair our ship. You have treated us with professional courtesy despite our being strangers in your territory. Because you are prisoners of war. Are we at war? Tony asked with apparent surprise. We were not aware that our species were in conflict. All species are in conflict until proven otherwise, Thexan stated firmly. This is the natural order. Dr. Parker tilted her head thoughtfully. Admiral, has this natural order brought peace and prosperity to the galaxy? The question struck Thexan unexpectedly. The Andorian Empire was,